Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast. I'm Catherine Tindall with Dominion. We're a specialty tax and accounting firm that serves advisors as their strategic tax advisors. But today's episode, I have with me Parker Ence. He is the CEO and co-founder of Jump Advisor, which is an AI tool for client meetings that I'm really interested in. I use different AI tools on our side of things, but I know for advisors, the compliance requirements are so difficult. And also getting everything to actually sync back correctly into your CRM is a huge challenge. Parker's experience includes a 4-time as a tech CEO in insurtech, data and AI, Google Cloud AI, and has an MBA from Stanford. So thanks for joining me today, Parker. I've been really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, no, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to dig in here.
So I know it's funny. I've had this conversation several times with advisors where they are really interested in AI tools, but the main concern for them is security issues and the data security. So it's probably a good one just to out in the open start with that of what are some of the things that you guys have been able to build around the mechanism of how the software works to keep data secure and not have things kind of going off where they could get accessed.
Yeah. No, I actually do think it's a super important question. And I think the first question we usually get is, I've heard a lot about AI, but how do I actually use it in a practical way?
Yeah.
And then the immediate follow-up question is, how do I do that in a compliant, safe, privacy-sensitive way, right? So,
yeah.
And just, with us on the Jump team, we've now basically worked with everybody from a solo kind of completely independent RIA that might be in XYPN planning network or something like that.
Yeah.
All the way up to, we just barely announced a partnership with LPL. So that's kind of the largest broker dealer, and then much larger RIAs. And so we've had this conversation many times, and it's actually pretty interesting. There are some differences in opinion about the best way to deal with some of these decision points. I think that the headline here is, these big firms that have way more lawyers than you and I will ever have figured out a way to make it work, right? And so I think some of the key considerations for what we do, and maybe for those that aren't familiar with Jump, the short version is we have an AI meeting assistant that will essentially help you prepare for your next client meeting. It'll capture all the data that comes up during the meeting by basically analyzing the audio from the meeting. And then when the meeting's done, our goal is to basically deliver a 95% final draft that has what's going to get loaded into the CRM, what's my note that I'm going to have for my own note-taking purposes, or if I ever get an SEC exam or something like that, and I have to present the notes, kind of having a high-quality meeting note. We pull out tasks, we pull out all the financial planning data that comes up, and we kind of organize all that. And so we're dealing with actually very sensitive data, right? Some of these conversations could rise to the level of healthcare data very easily. A lot of the times we're talking about health with our financial advisor. So it becomes very important. So just a couple of things that we usually work through with our customers that are going to set this up. The first is, how do we capture the audio from the meeting in a compliant way? And there's certain states where it's actually legally required that you give disclosure if you're ever going to record or capture or basically in some way transcribe the meeting. And so we have a bunch of different ways that disclosure is possible. But the main thing is just tell them that, hey, I'm going to take a voice memo of the meeting, or I'm going to use a note-taking tool. And that's sort of the first box to check. The second box to check is we're now generating artifacts of the meeting. It might be media like video or audio files, could be a transcription. It's definitely going to be some kind of AI summarization. And so there's actually not currently consensus on whether or not that raw data is considered books and records. So we've got some broker dealers and some RIAs that are saying that is books and records, therefore I don't want media because that means I have to surveil it. So they'll just basically have us give them just the summarization so they don't have to worry about hanging on to video files forever. Other broker dealers and other RIAs have decided that the raw data is not books and records, and so they're going to hang on to it either forever because they can, or maybe they're going to auto delete it after a certain period of time because they don't want it hanging around. So that's kind of the second big piece, is just figuring out a strategy there. And I think for us, the good news is, because we've worked with all these different types of firms, we kind of have every configuration now. So they can sort of choose their own adventure and say, I want, 2B or 1A or whatever, and we can do that. And I think the final piece is, this is sensitive data. What you don't want is for sensitive PII to go into some kind of an AI model and then get improperly passed to another user of the same AI model, or leak in some other way.
Yeah.
And right when ChatGPT was becoming really popular, the SEC actually came out and said, you need to be really careful about the kind of data that you load into these chatbots. And so, so we've kind of designed our pipeline so that any data that comes in from the client or the firm, you can think of our data pipeline like a big calculator, where it's going to sort of do the math for you, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, it'll give the summaries back to you, and then it clears. It doesn't remember anything. It's not storing or learning. And so that's all that the CCO needs to hear on that one.
Yeah, cool. Nice. So now that we got to that, let's get to the fun part, which is, how do we actually deploy tools like this? And what are some of the things that you've seen in the field in terms of I want to start with the benefit. What are some of the results that people have been getting from being able to implement the tool that you guys got, in terms of like administrative savings or just quality of life improvements?
Yeah, for sure. So when we originally built the first version of what is now Jump, it was actually because my neighbor, who is an independent RIA here in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is where most of our team is based, he told me taking notes is the bane of my existence. Like, I'll go have this really rewarding, fun, conversation with my client. We make all these decisions about what we're going to do. Everybody's excited. And then the door closes, and then I got to go relive all this by typing it out, which is sort of the worst. And so I think the first thing that we'll hear back from our customers, they'll say, if I turn on Jump and I use the note-taking feature, the follow-up task generation feature, the email drafting feature that creates a follow-up email. We also extract all the financial planning data and organize it, so it's very easy to move into your financial plan. Just by turning that on out of the box, we very, very commonly will hear that cuts that meeting admin time down by about half, so about 50%. So if you're spending an hour after the meeting kind of processing that meeting, that can go down to 30 minutes. And then we also provide a way to customize the AI outputs. Advisors don't want to sound like an AI robot. They want to sound like themselves. And so we allow them to load in examples and kind of adjust the templates. And if advisors do that, then that's going to push that time savings up to as high as 90%, maybe 75% would be more common. And that's pretty simple. Why? If the AI is generating something that looks like you wrote it, you're not spending as much time kind of making edits. So that's the first fun one, which is the time savings. And when we launched with LPL, they actually verified that, and they kind of came back after their initial pilot and said, our advisors are saving between 1 and 2 hours a day, which is pretty awesome. So then you start thinking about, well, what are we going to do with that time? So we had another A/B test that we did with an RIA out in California, and they saw that the users that were on Jump, and they're kind of unique. They're very meticulous about tracking the deliverables to their client. So every time they do something for the client, they log it in Salesforce. And so they saw that the advisors that were on Jump were actually delivering 20 up to 50% more deliverables in a week compared to those that weren't on Jump. And I think that's really for two reasons. One is that they got some time back from kind of the admin scribe work, and they reallocated that to client service. And then second, they weren't procrastinating because they weren't dreading having to do the processing. And so they were able to very quickly delegate that out to the investment team or the operations team, which was great. So I think those are probably the two main things. And then just more generally, just the experience for the client's better because the advisor is showing up better prepared. They don't have to take notes during the meeting, so they can be more present. And then they're going to be much more thorough and faster in their follow-up.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm sure another huge benefit too, especially for people who are running teams, is being able to have consistency across what the different team members are doing too. It's like
Yeah.
we've got things programmed to come out the same way, and the meeting cadence is running the same way, and things going back into the CRM systems the same way. That's a huge benefit, because I know, like, I talking to advisors, like one of the big problems is, it's really easy for your data to get dirty, like dirty of just
Sure.
things aren't in the right places. And so having tools that help people be more consistent on your team is super helpful. So in terms of like the actual implementation, how difficult is it usually for people to spin up being able to use Jump? What's the normal like process to get started? Just a slight interruption in this conversation. I wanted to bring to your attention two things that are important for you to know. So, we're always at the mercy of social media algorithms. So, if you can subscribe to the show, that would mean a lot to me. Even more to me if you can leave a rating and let me know what you think about it. But we have a new newsletter that's coming out. It's going to be very active in 2025. That is specifically around tax issues that I'm seeing advisors face in their own practices, changes in legislations, and the pieces that I think are critically important for you to stay ahead of as an advisor with the new administration. So nearby, wherever you're interacting with this, will be the link of how to sign up for our newsletter. Also nearby will be the link to my LinkedIn, which is the best way to get in touch with me, learn more about what we're doing for advisors in the tax strategy and compliance work that we do, and also to get access to the various tools and interviews and things that I do, specifically designed to help you improve your practice, improve your own tax situation, etc. So let's get back to the episode, and thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, so I was recently on a webinar. We did a poll, and it was a pretty open-ended question, but the question was basically, how long do you think it would take to implement your first AI tool? And this wasn't specific to Jump. This was just kind of in general.
Yeah.
And the average answer was 6 months. So I think that the perception is that
Wow.
these AI tools are like really, laborious to implement, and they can be, right? So if you're building it from scratch, like, Morgan Stanley took months and months to sort of and spent millions of dollars to kind of build an AI co-pilot. So you could do it that way, but the nice thing is that there are technology partners like Jump that have something that's pretty off the shelf and it's fit to our industry. So it should be pretty intuitive. So average implementation time for Jump for an advisor that's acting as an individual is going to be like 5 to 10 minutes. It's basically just logging in, connecting your CRM, and then you process your next meeting. And then there's usually a little bit of adjustment if you want to customize the outputs. You can go in and change the template yourself. That might take 20 to 30 minutes. We have learned that some advisors have extensive types of meetings with many, many kind of detailed ways that they do notes. So that might take a little bit longer, but generally it's pretty fast. And then if it's a larger firm and there's a bunch of custom objects, maybe they're in Salesforce and they've created a bunch of custom data objects or fields, that might take another 45 minutes to do all the mappings, but our team can usually handle that. So it's pretty painless.
Yeah, that's great. And I imagine in terms of integrations, like what are common tools that Jump plugs into that advisors are using?
Yeah. So one of our original design principles was, if you were to hire an assistant, you would expect them to quickly learn your tech stack and kind of be able to go from one tool to the other. And we wanted to reflect that in the AI assistant. So integrations have actually been a really big part of our design. And so what we've started with is the CRMs. So we're currently integrated with Salesforce. That includes all of the overlays, Practify, Accelerate, Financial Service Cloud, all the different variations of Salesforce. We're also integrated with WealthBox, Redtail. We've got Advise-On coming out in Q4, and then Advisor Engine coming out in Q1, and then also HubSpot. So that should hopefully cover most, maybe 95% or so of advisors. And then we also support pretty much all of the virtual meeting platforms, because we've got to, we got to get the audio in from somewhere. So Zoom, Teams, WebEx, Google Meet, RingCentral, GoTo, Dialpad, Intulse, and then we can also pull in phone calls from like your personal phone too. We have a way to do that. So those are kind of the virtual meeting tools. For in-person meetings, we have a mobile app or a laptop, so you can pull the audio in that way. And then for calendar, we do Gmail, Outlook, and Exchange. So those should be kind of the basics. And then the plan moving forward is to start tying into financial planning software and kind of other places that you would want data in and out based on what you talk about during the meetings.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. So, this is kind of where you guys are right now, but in terms of things you're driving towards in the future, are there things that you think advisors should know are kind of on your dashboard of where the platform's going?
Yeah, so I think so far what's really resonated is we've got a lot of tools for preparing for the meeting, at least based on what's in the CRM data, capturing the meeting, and then when the meeting's done, we talked about a bunch of those deliverables and kind of how we can move those into CRM or other places. There's sort of three areas that we're looking to drive things forward in next year. So the first is we want to bulk up that pre-meeting prep and make it more comprehensive. So that's something that we're excited about. We also have more and more data from these meetings. And as you can imagine, if you're the owner of an RIA that has many advisors, it would be really helpful to understand what's working in these meetings, what kinds of behaviors are leading to new clients. Are there certain best practices that we've trained on that we want to see if they're actually making a difference? So we're thinking about insights that would be across the firm. And then the third area is just thinking about how, we're already giving you a task list when the meeting is done. And we're saying, hey, based on the conversation, you said that you were going to send a login, and you said you're going to make an introduction to a CPA, or you're going to do a conversion from a 401k to an IRA or something like that. We're starting to think about how can we actually help you get a head start on those things, whether it's filling in forms or actually taking some action there. So those are the three ways that we're hoping to advance what we already have.
Nice. That's great. So for people who are looking to kind of get into your world, Parker, and check out Jump, what's the best place for them to start?
Yeah. So a couple of ways. We do, our team is obviously happy to jump on a demo and kind of walk you through some show and tell and answer questions. So if you wanted to schedule to meet with our team, the website is jumpapp.com. And then there's a button there to schedule that. We do also allow new users to do a free trial. So you can try out Jump on 5 meetings is usually what we'll do. So you can get in and take it for a test drive and see how it works. And seeing, pictures worth 1,000 words, as they say.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Try it.
Yeah, that's great. Get the blessing from your compliance and go for it.
Yeah, and just tell them, listen, LPL signed off on it. And so
LPL said it was okay. Are you going to disagree with them?
There's got to be some way, right? There must be some way for us, right? So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, and congrats on that. I found out about that on the I did a CFO roundtable with them a couple of weeks ago, and they brought it up. So I was like, oh, that's great. But I love that. I'm a big proponent of, we use some AI tools in our firm, and the time savings and the ability for you to just have the person-to-person interaction with the client and not have to be constantly juggling the note-taking function, or have somebody else in your team that's taking the notes or whatever it is, and that you can just be there with them. It's just so valuable. And I think it just really deepens the relationships in a non-quantifiable way. But so for people who are listening, I'll post those links nearby wherever you're interacting with us, of the website. And then if you want to connect with Parker on LinkedIn, and any closing thoughts that you have, or things that maybe we should have hit before we sign off, Parker?
I just think we're in an exciting time. I think AI is, it's a big idea. It can seem scary. There's probably some concern around, will I still be doing my work the way that I do it now? Will I be replaced by robots, right? Is it Terminator? Is it Wall-E? We're not sure. I think that, we have a pretty optimistic view, which is the human connection between a client and an advisor is going to be around forever, because when it comes to the critical decisions that you're making about your financial freedom, security, legacy, these are things that you just want that human connection and to feel that assurance. And so we see our role as, how do we build the Iron Man suit to help the advisor just do more and be better, and kind of augment the genius that they already bring to the table. So it's super exciting, and I think there are tools available now, which is great. And something like Jump, it's not as as risky as letting the robots do trades for you or build portfolios for you, which yes, the SEC would be freaking out about at this point in time. And I think we'll get there, but this is a little bit less risky to kind of dip the toe in.
Yeah, absolutely. And a quick ROI, a 10-minute installation, and then you can start chipping away at those meeting times. Like that's an immediate return. So thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Parker. And for those of you listening, I'm always interested in hearing your feedback on episodes. So feel welcome to send me a DM and tell me what you thought. But this was another episode of the Financial Advisors Want to Know podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. We'll see you soon.